G'day, welcome to G-Clamp Garage. So let's just introduce this video so you can work out straight off the bat whether this is something you need to watch or something you need to skip or something you need to skip to the bit that you want to see. What we're doing here, we've got our Haynes workshop manuals and we're going to review that and we're going to go through it step by step and look at all the steps that Haynes tells you to do any specific job, and then we're going to sort of tear that apart and probably decide to do it our own way, and we're going to show that as well. So if that's something that you need to see, well, you're in the right place. Otherwise you just got clickbaited by the algorithm, and yeah, you can just keep moving on, I guess. Otherwise, enjoy the ride. So the ride's departing shortly, but since you're still here, this is the particular book that we're covering today in this video. Toyota Corolla 97, I'll cover this in a second anyway, so that's it. But specifically, we're going to jump into Chapter 8, Clutch and Drive Axles, and we're going to be looking in particular at Section 3, which is Clutch Components, Removal and Inspection Installation, and we'll also pretty extensively be going through Manual Transaxle Removal and Installation in Part 7A. That being said, there's a lot to cover. This is going to be me flicking through the book and flicking back and forth to the engine bay for probably about half an hour. I'll try and add as much chapters and stuff like that so that you can just flick to the part that you need, but you know, you can also just skip straight to the the second half of the video where I where I pretty much just ignore what Haynesy says and just do it how I do it, because yeah, this review is going to consist of a lot of mistakes. All right, departing soon. Welcome aboard. Here is our 2000 model Toyota Corolla. It's an Ascent flavour. It has the 1.8 7A FE engine. And we purchased this car very cheap with a broken clutch. And we also purchased our Haynes repair guide, which today we're going to review because we want to fix the clutch. We've never done it before, but we've done it now and it's all done. So, you know, you're probably here because you want to do this job yourself at home, or maybe you got this manual and you, what the hell's going on here? So, yeah, we're going to dive in and just have a look at what Haynes here says to do. So with our particular one here, Toyota Corolla 97 to 2006. So that covers us, hatchback, yep, that's us. Also covers sedans and wagons, 1.6 litre engines as well. Important for us, we're 1.8, probably pretty similar anyway. So based on a complete tear down and rebuild, essential information for today's more complex vehicles. So yeah, we've got to dive in and get that clutch out. It's all the way down in there. So let's look into it. So before we do get started, we'll just point out that before you start ripping into the, pulling it all apart and getting the gearbox out, you probably want to make sure that you check that you've got fluid in the system and that's all good, which we did, which is good. And you want to make sure that if there's not, check for leaks, check the pedal around the firewall there, because it could be leaking in there. And also your slave cylinder, you want to make sure that's not leaking and it's, it's doing the hydraulic thing. And, if that's the case, then you've probably got another more simple problem that's just a leak in your hydraulic line somewhere, and you don't have to continue on with all this video. We start our journey in Chapter 8, Clutch and Drive Axles. Section, probably can't read it, but Section 3 is Clutch Components, Removal and Inspection. I don't think I need to read it word for word, but if you have the book yourself, you can read it, but whatever. So, warning, warning, warning. Watch out for the dust, all that stuff. I probably should have paid more attention to that, but we've got here removal. So basic gist of the matter is it's, if you got the engine out, you got the gearbox out for whatever reason, it's easier to inspect the clutch and fix on it then, and they're cheap enough to buy. So all the effort to do this, because it is quite a big job, it's worth probably doing when you have the engine out or the gearbox out. So we'll skip step 1 there. Step 2, remove the release cylinder see section 6. Hang it out of the way with a piece of wire. It isn't necessary to disconnect the hose. Well, that's a good important note there, because it's not necessary to disconnect the hose. But once you jump to section 6, which we'll skip to that in a second, we'll see what the removal of that involves. So removal. Disconnect the negative cable from the battery. This one. I just take the whole battery out. I think that's my tip here. Raise the vehicle and support it securely on jack stands. Doink doink, lift it up. I'd probably not worry about that because I don't think you really need to. Disconnect the hydraulic line, so they already told us not to do that, but you know, whatever. Remove the release cylinder mounting bolts. There's 2 of those in there, which you can, yeah, look at that, perfect, you can see those. And have a small can of rags handy because you're going to leak fluid everywhere when you take that hydraulic line off, and remove the release cylinder. Not the first step I would take. Not the first step I would take in this situation. So yeah, we'll dive into that a little bit. I'm going to pause every now and again and just add in any extra side notes that I can. So let's imagine that you do just need to change this slave release cylinder. First step, I wouldn't really think that you'd need to disconnect the battery. And second step, I wouldn't think that you'd really need to jack up the car either, because you can get into that slave cylinder from the top. And if you were getting at it from the bottom, you'd probably want to add in there, remove the splash shields, because I think they'll be in your way. But other than that, and probably grab your rags before you go ahead and undo the fluid. All right, so we've already determined that the first step won't be the first step. So we'll move on to the second step, which is actually the third step, because the first step's just to blabble. Remove the transaxle. So see section 7A. Blah, blah, blah. Need to support the engine once you take the transaxle out. That's kind of wrong, but we'll continue to talk about that. So we'll move to the next section. Righto, this is where it starts to get fun. Remove the transaxle. So first thing it says to do is refer to the illustrations, which are all about removing engine mounts and engine mount stays and all that stuff, which we're not ready to do yet. And so first step in this process is to disconnect the negative cable. Where is it? There it is, this one. Sure. Like I said before, take the whole battery out, it's easier. Remove the air filter housing, all right? So these are probably actually the first steps I would take. Air filter housing, see chapter 4, you go to chapter 4. I don't think I need to go on that because it's a pretty easy step anyway. It's just undo this little bolt here, a couple of clips here, yoink that out, easy peasy, air filter's in there, you can take that out. Then there's 3 bolts inside of here, you can take those out. Then you can remove this, pops off of the little hosey there, and that's out. And then you might actually get a glimpse at the gearbox. So next, step 3, loosen the drive axle hub nuts. See chapter 8. Loosen them, okay. Let's go to chapter 8 and see what that's all about. So the hub nuts, yeah, disconnect the battery again, set the parking brake, which you probably already got it set anyway. Loosen the front wheel lug nuts. Raise the vehicle and support it securely on jack stands. We've already gone through that before. I guess, you know, these things are just individual things, but we'll come back to that. Unstake the drive axle hub nut. See illustration. So in the illustration here, using a hammer and punch, unstake the drive axle hub nut. Mine wasn't that set up. I can probably flick in a little picture here. We just had a little split pin and a clampolator kind of thing sticking on top of it. Remove the drive axle hub nut. To prevent the hub from turning, wedge a lever between the 2 wheel studs and allow the lever to rest against the ground on the floor. I can't read it because I'm reading off the screen. Yeah, put it on the floor plane of the vehicle. I'd probably use the ground or something like that. That's not going to get damaged when you yoink on that. But sure. So we're going to take that out. And again, that's something I'd just skip for now because we only want to, you know, jack the car up once. Not jack it up and put it down, jack it up, put it down and stuff. Righto. So hub nuts are out. And next we've got to step 4, remove the clutch release cylinder and the clutch hydraulic line. So we already did that in a previous step, but I mean, this is again another process. So yep, tells us to remove the line as well. Chapter 8, we already looked at that step. So we'll skip to step 5. Unplug the electrical connectors from the backup light switch. See section 4, which tells us to remove the whole thing. It's down in here where we got a little grey cable there. You can just unplug that. I wouldn't remove the whole sensor itself. No need to. Then we're going to locate, we've got to take the speed sensor out as well, which, let me tell you, that's in a fun spot. That's that black cable running down there, just connected in between those shift linkage cables, like a real fun spot to get at. So sure, I'll take that out next. Step 6, locate the earth cable on top of the transaxle. Remove the cable from the retaining bolt and detach the earth cable from the transaxle. You're down in there, this one. We assume that's what they're talking about, so yeah, easy. Undo the bolt, take it out, makes sense. And then disconnect the shift cables from the transaxle. See section 2. We could jump into that section. So section 2 here, caution. This is just about the stereo, and you know, if you don't have the code, you probably want to set the code or something like that so you can get your stereo back. Didn't affect me in this car at all. So yeah, step 1 of this one, in the engine compartment, remove the retaining clips and the washers and disconnect the shift cables from the selecting bell crank. See illustration. So there's our illustration. You can get a better look at those compared to what I can show you in the engine bay at the moment. So you just can pull those pins out. They're pretty easy. There's a little washer on there. Just don't drop them down the engine bay. Then remove the cable retainers from the cable bracket. See illustration. So these little brackets here, all these little clips off the bracket, take those out and the cables will just pop out. That's good. It then continues to tell you inside the vehicle, blah, 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 to take the whole cables out. You don't need to do that in this, so they don't mention that, but yeah, don't worry about that. Moving on. So our next step, we'll go to step 8. Detach the wire harness clamps from the engine and or transaxle and set the harness aside. So let's elaborate on that a little bit, because this is something I'd probably do earlier and it's its own little battle. There's your main harness there, you know, which is attached to the battery, and the earth cables and the relay box, which is attached then to the fuse box here, and wires connected in, you know, here, there and everywhere. So it doesn't really elaborate much on that step, but yep, we'll, you know, there's clamps in there and stuff. We'll take all those. Then it says step 9, remove the upper starter mounting bolt. See chapter 5. We don't really need to go to chapter 5. We can see where the bolt is when we're in there. So we've already removed all that stuff. You can remove that for whatever reason you need to remove it now. Step 10, remove the 2 upper and the single front transaxle to engine mounting bolts. Note the location of any earth connectors or brackets so that they may be installed in their original location. Okay, so we're onto the engine mounts. They're a fun step. Front one, is it? Yeah, the front one. So down in there, there it is. You just need to remove that. Don't worry about bracing the engine or anything like that. You can do that later. Step 11, remove the left engine mount stay and the left engine mount retaining bolt. See illustrations, they were there before, we looked at those. So you can't actually see this engine mount, but once you've removed the airbox, you'll be able to see it. Down in here, sure, just take that out. We can also tell you from experience that if you've got AC in your car, these AC lines run straight across those bolts, so, you know, just bend them out of the way, I guess. Don't worry about pointing out how to remove those. And also, we didn't worry about bracing the engine or anything like that. You just take out 2 of the 4 engine mounts and that'll be fine. What are we up to now? Step 12, loosen the wheel lug nuts. Yeah, because they're still on there, aren't they? Because we didn't remove the wheel hubs or anything like that, so that's fine. Raise the vehicle, support it securely on jack stands, remove the wheels. Yeah, that's what it says. So step 13, support the engine. That's a good idea. Yeah, because you've already removed 2 engine mounts, so it's probably a good idea to support that now. Can be done from above by using an engine support fixture or an engine hoist, or by placing a jack with a wood block as an insulator under the engine. The oil pan, yep, sorry, we're reading really good here today. The engine must be supported at all times while the transaxle is out of the vehicle. I would probably recommend that you support the engine before you start dicking around with pulling engine mounts out, because you've only got half the engine there, and yeah, it's just, that's a bit silly. So we'll pause there for a second. We'll move on in a minute. Another quick little side note: it didn't actually say remove the engine mounts, but it did say remove the stays / brackets / retaining bolts, which all in the same, your engine's not going to be mounted in the engine bay anymore. And then it told you to jack the car up and take the wheels off, and then it tells you to support the engine. It's just, yeah, the engine's probably going to fall on you if you do that. So yeah, be careful following this stuff. So moving straight back on, step 14, remove the under vehicle splash shields. See chapter 2. I won't bother going to chapter 2 to show that they're down at the bottom. I haven't actually put those in yet. There's some bolts to those in the wheel arches, and a couple of bolts around the front. You just take those out. That's easy. That drops out. Step 15, drain the transaxle fluid. See chapter 1. You don't need to go to chapter 1. Doesn't really show you a picture of where the drain hole is anyway. Step 16, remove the drive axles. See chapter 6. Righto. So we'll go to chapter 6 and we'll have a look at that. What I actually meant to say was chapter 8, but anyway, not the only one making mistakes here. Drive axle removal. We already started this step off because we took the hub nuts off, but so to loosen the drive axle from the hub splines, tap the end of the drive axle with a soft-faced hammer or a hammer and a brass punch. See illustration, wherever that is, sure. And don't attempt to push the push rod, don't bang the drive axle into the gearbox, it's not ideal. Remove the engine splash shields, we already did that, that's fine, this is just a different step. So place a drain pan underneath the transaxle, catch any lubricant that may come out when the drive axle is removed. Hopefully we already drained the gearbox oil though, so there's not too much in there. Remove the nuts and bolts securing the ball joint to the control arm. I can't really show that because the car's on the ground, but I can show that when I show you what I actually did. Then prise the control arm down to separate the components. See chapter 10. Yep. So after it refers you to chapter 10 with no specific guide of actually where to go, eventually, you can flick through it all and find that these are the bolts that I couldn't show you before. So to detach the control arm from the steering knuckle ball joints, remove this bolt and these 2 nuts, which is fine. You can take those off, prise it apart with a tool, and then you can free the wheel hub enough so that you can maneuver it around and tappy tap on the drive axle and get it out and do the thing that you need to do. So with a bit of common sense you can figure that out. So back to step 9. Pull out the steering knuckle, like I just said. Detach the drive axles from the hub. See our illustration. Whichever one it might be. Yep, sure. No, yep, no. Don't let the inner CV. No, don't let the drive axle hang by the inner CV joint, and just sort of sit it there somewhere or tie it up if you need to. And then number 10, carefully prise the inner CV joint out of the transaxle. See illustration. That's probably not the best way to do that. If necessary, refer to chapter 7 for the drive axle oil seal replacement procedure. And yeah, so that's that step, removing the drive axles. I'd definitely probably add in, we covered these earlier steps earlier, but none of those earlier steps were drain the transaxle fluid. So yeah, oil's going to go everywhere. So I'd also add that step in there somewhere. That'd be a good idea. Let's return back to remove the transaxle, I guess. Okay, so step 16 we removed the drive axles. 17, remove the front exhaust pipe. See chapter 4. So we'll touch on this a little bit. So we go to chapter 4. The exhaust, well, let's just go to chapter 4 first. So chapter 4 is fuel and exhaust systems. The only mention of the exhaust in the index here is exhaust system check, exhaust system servicing. So really I could flick through all these pages and there's really nothing about a upper exhaust or anything like that. So yeah, let's move on. So, you know, looking through the book, trying to figure out what you got to do next. We look in the index in the back here, and he mentions of exhaust, his exhaust system check and servicing general information, which we saw in chapter 4, or the checks in chapter 1. Sorry about the blurriness, the phone just does its own thing. Exhaust manifold, maybe that's what they mean by the upper exhaust. But we don't need to do that. We don't need to do that. We don't need to take any of the exhaust out as such. So let's skip past that one. Righto, so before we do move on, I know I make mistakes too, and I keep saying upper exhaust, but it actually says front exhaust. Regardless, they're wronger than I am. And yeah, I'll show you some more Haynesy in-depth stuff. So if you look at, you know, check, it tells you, you know, check for holes and broken brackets and all that kind of thing that could be wrong with your exhaust system. Servicing and general information, section 4, at chapter 9, or part 9, which is actually number 16, servicing general information. Yep, servicing general information. Okay, so we skip past 9 somewhere else. What's number 9? Fuel tank cleaning. Yep, sure. That's good. That's good index. So, you know, it tells you to watch out for the dust and don't touch it when it's hot. But then we said the exhaust system consists of the exhaust manifold, catalytic converter, the muffler, the tailpipe, and all connecting pipes and brackets, hangers and clamps. The exhaust system's attached to the body with mounting brackets, blah, 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 blah. There's the mounting brackets. So, you know, that's kind of wrong. And then if we look at this one here, we got exhaust manifold removal and installation. We're on the 7A FE. So 2A, section 5. Let's jump into that and have a look. There we go. We're in chapter 2A, section 5. Manifold removal. Disconnect the negative cable from the battery. Sure. Yep. Refer to chapter 4 to remove the throttle body. Sure. And linkages and safely relieve the fuel system pressure. Okay. So, yeah, look, you're not really thinking about it and you just start doing it. But hang on. What's this in the way here? Oh, inlet manifold or intake manifold. What they actually meant to say was part 6, exhaust manifold removal and installation. So, as you can see, this book is just full of puzzles. I do need to just touch on one more thing of the exhaust, and then I promise I'll move on. But it says in the, you know, that section that we looked at with the exhaust system servicing general information, when working on components from the exhaust, remove them from the rear first. And that's just... yeah, so basically pull the whole exhaust out is what they've kind of said there, but don't do that. Just, there's a bracket you need to remove later. I'll show you when I show you the way I did it. That you don't, yeah, just let's move on. Righto, so we're at part 17, step 18, sorry. Disconnect the front engine mount, see illustration. So I guess that's where you take it out from the bottom, underneath a little brace that supports on the cross member, if you didn't already sort of do that already, I guess, when you were in there. Yep, sure. Step 19, remove the rear engine mount. See illustration, whichever one it is. Can't read it properly. There we go, this one. So you can take the rear engine mount out from the bottom. Remove the center support member. See illustration. I can definitely add in on this step. If you just take those 3 bolts out, that rear engine mount isn't coming out. You've still got the retaining bolt holding it in there. And even if you take that out, it's in such a tight little jammed in spot between that cross member and the power steering rack, it is not going to come out. And as for the next step, that cross member brace piece isn't coming out either, like this. Center support, center support. Are we seeing it? Are we seeing it? Any illustration? Not on this page. Not on this page. What do we got on here? Nope. Nope. Nope, nope. I guess they forgot to put that one in there maybe, or maybe this one. Yeah, that's this piece. So yeah, 2 bolts at the front. The engine mount bolts that you've already taken out and 1 extra bolt there. So sure, that comes out easy. Remove the starter motor. See chapter 5? So you go to chapter 5 and you've already taken 1 bolt out, another bolt on the bottom and the wires. It's pretty straightforward. On 1.6s, we're not on 1.6, so we'll skip that. On 1.8 litre models, remove the rear engine plate. So remove the rear engine plate. We'll later find out that that's not actually there. Let's just add in here that there's a whole bunch of different models and versions, etc., etc. But mine looks exactly like that picture, and that piece that they're telling you to remove is attached to the upper sump, which you have to actually remove the sump to remove, and it's got a whole bunch of bolts in it, and yeah, it's not coming out like that. Anyway, sure. 24. Remove the left engine mount. See illustration. So, I don't know, we're going to go looking for here. Oh, that, yeah, there we go. There's an illustration. Actually, different diagram later on refers to that illustration, but that's another wrong thing that's in this book. Definitely come back to that when we get to the installation, for sure. And also remove the mount bracket. I feel like we might have already done that already, but 25. Support the transaxle with a jack, preferably a special jack made for this purpose. These jacks are available at most equipment yards, blah, blah, blah. Didn't have one of those, but the way I ended up doing it, which I'll probably show later, is I had an engine brace in here attached to the bracketry there that, you know, you pull your engine out with. And it also had a secondary thing I could put a chain on to hook up that. So that was what we did there. And so 26, remove the rest of the bolts securing the transaxle to the engine. Okay, so take out all your doodah bolts there on the bell housing, I guess that means. 27, make a final check that all wires and hoses have been disconnected from the transaxle, because you want to check that because they were pretty vague on what to remove and what. And 28, lower the left passenger's end of the engine, then roll the transaxle and jack towards the side of the vehicle. Once the import shaft is clear of the splines in the clutch hub, lower the transaxle and remove it from under the vehicle. Try to keep the transaxle as level as possible. Caution, caution. Do not depress the clutch pedal while the transaxle is removed from the vehicle. Final step in removing the transaxle, 29. The clutch components can now be inspected. See Chapter 8. In most cases, new clutch components should be routinely installed whenever the transaxle is removed. All right, good day. That's the gearbox out. So that was, I think that was step 2 or 3 of getting to the clutch. So let's go back there, Chapter 8. Righto, so we return back to Chapter 8, clutch and drive axles, back to our Section 3 where we started. And so we remove the release cylinder, that's done. We remove the transaxle, a lot of steps involved in that. Step 4, the release fork and the release bearing can remain attached to the transaxle for the time being, which is fine. Step 5, to support the clutch disc during removal, install a clutch alignment tool through the clutch hub. So they give us a picture of that. I can show that anyway because we do that later. There we go. There's your clutch alignment tool. So carefully inspect the flywheel and pressure plate for indexing marks. The marks are usually an X or an O. I personally couldn't find any marks, or a white letter. If they cannot be found, scribe marks yourself and on the pressure plate and the flywheel, so they'll be in the same position during installation. So it's telling you here to mark this and mark that, which is all good. We can assume that you're probably just going to replace your clutch anyway if you're at this stage of the process. The other thing that sort of comes to my mind when you do this is, as we read on a little bit further, you've got to clean all this stuff, so you'll probably just wipe those marks straight off. But let's just go with the assumption that you're going to install a new clutch anyway. So step 7, slowly loosen the pressure plate bolts. Wheel bolt, sorry, there it is there. Work in a diagonal pattern. Loosen each bolt a little at a time until all the spring pressure is relieved. Then hold the pressure plate securely and completely remove the bolts, followed by the pressure plate and the clutch discs. So that all just comes out in one easy step. That's pretty easy. That's probably the easiest part of this process nearly so far. We don't really need to cover inspection too much. We'll inspect my clutch, which was destroyed totally when you see it coming up later on in the video. So, you know, that's all your inspection things, and then we'll cover installation at the end. But so now we'll dive into what I did. And this might be just part 1. We might just make it one big long video. We're already nearly half an hour long, so we'll see what we decide with that, but probably maybe we'll do both. I don't know, but yeah, let's move on for this. We'll click over to some other random footage that I've got, and we'll rip this thing apart. Righto, so we'll just start with this one. We'll flick between this and some ordinary footage that I've got of me actually doing it, but I don't really have a good shot of doing this. So yeah, we remember Haynesy said in his steps to remove the release cylinder. We're just going to ignore that for now because we don't need to go there. The first step that I'd recommend that you take is the battery, even though I think I took the airbox out first or whatever. But anyway, take the battery out, take the negative, take the positive, take the clamp out if you got a clamp. Mine didn't have one to start with. I replaced on that later. There's a little battery tray in there. Get that out because later on you're going to take this out. So I don't know. Well, Haynesy didn't mention that, but you know, that's just in the way there where it is. So we'll pull that out. This airbox, all you need to do, there's a screw here, back that off. There's a couple of clips here, clip. There's a MAF sensor there, pull that out. There's a couple of hinges here, but you can just wangle that out. That's fine. Once you got that out, you'll have the air cleaner in there. You can pull the air cleaner out. Easy job. There's also, before you take the base of it out, there's a, I didn't mention it before when I told you how to do this, but there's a little clippy there. You just unclip that and probably will break because it's brittle, but you know, mine's still intact. It came out all right. So yep, just that's going to disconnect that wire from that bottom box so you don't yoink that out. You could probably then too also just disconnect that. Just has a little clip in the back, pops off a little slider there, and you can just leave it sitting there or whatever. It's going to be in the way several times, so it'll get a bit of frequent flyer miles moving around. And then we'll move on to the next step. Just check the front of the box too, just in case that has a connection as well. I can't remember if it did or not on the harness. Just check that. This is probably not a bad idea too, because I lost this when I pulled it apart. I eventually found it. Obviously it's there, but you can disconnect this one, just pull it off, and it's also attached down in here on a little sensor there. Just pull that one out. If you wanted to, you could pull that one out as well. Just gets it out of your way, and then you won't knock it out when you're fiddling around with stuff and knock it out. You know, you can do the right thing and mark it. So still here in the clean engine bay with everything still attached. So you just got to use your imagination a little bit, because I didn't take particular footage of everything when I did it. But I mentioned before, you're going to probably want to take this out just to make your life easier. So do that now. It's got 2 bolts under the battery there, which you've already taken out. You can wangle this around or whatever. This has got a little clamp on it you can take off. Just remove that out of there if you want. Because I also removed the radiator, so you can do that at any stage you want, but Haynesy doesn't say to do that. But you can see that heater hose is just sort of, I mean, you could get it out without doing it if you so choose to, if you don't want to drain on the fluid, which you do down there. If it focuses, there's a little plug there. You just undo that, drain the fluid out, take the cap off. I didn't actually disconnect the hoses when I did it from here, because you can see that's still got the old factory clamp on it, just for the fact that I didn't want to break this plastic thing when I'm pulling it apart. Probably easier to disconnect the bottom radiator hose, the bottom of that one and this one. but I left it on and sort of just unbuttoned the fan, unplugged the little pluggy in there, just put, there's a, there's a bolt here, there's a bolt there, and that just comes out, and that's just out of your way, which will also help when you've got to get to that engine mount down there, either putting it out in or putting it out, pulling it out, sorry. Just it's not too hard to do, so it was just makes things easier, so you can choose to do that or not. And yeah, given that's all out of the way, the next one's the old grainy footage. I'm going to get that harness out. Sorry, not the old grainy footage yet, but just a side note that I left out. The reason that I suggest what I didn't do and take the bottom hose out is just if you've got condensers lines, they'll be running down along the bottom there, and that's twisted up amongst that hose. So, I just bent and twisted it and pulled it out and left it on there. But yeah, if you want to make life easier for yourself, just disconnect that rad hose at the bottom, and then you don't have to dodge the condenser line that runs down through here. You can just see it, yeah, sort of blackness there and in through there. We'll definitely cover on those later on though. Next, I think we need to get into this harness, so we can take that out. This one will probably disconnect nice and easy, hopefully. Let's see if we can't break one on camera. Oh, there we go, that popped off nice. That's going to have to come off. But yeah, so I disconnected this SAD cable from here. That one goes back in here under the sadness. This one off the tranny here. This one here. And there's the thermostat housing, maybe a temperature sensor. A couple here on the Dizzy. Took them out, so they're hanging over there now. That one there off the so-called temperature sensor. This one off there. This one came off this little thing here on the aircon line. And battery cables, I'm probably going to pull that earth off. Just trying to work out how to get this out of the way now. That's all free there. I'll just freeze right there for a second, because there's the best shot of I can get of that clamp that you can see there. There's one bolt in that, just take that out and unclip the wire, remove that. And also I'll make note that there's the slave cylinder clip there. Just take the bolt out into the transmission, and you can, that'll come into the process of removing that, but we'll point it out now while you can see it. Righto, so we're back in here. So yeah, we want to try and get this wiring harness out of the way. As I pointed out, there's a clamp down in there that, oh yeah, you can see it, that's good. And there's the slave cylinder and that bolt that you want to remove that. Touching back on Haynesy, like his step of, step one, remove the slave cylinder and move it out of the way. So that's not really going to happen at this stage, because this is hard line. It's hard line all the way to that bracket, and then there's a soft line after that. So when we go to remove that, that's what you'll do there. But for now, yeah, we're just going to try and get this wiring harness out of the way. So what we need to do, because this is all connected into this relay box, and it's also connected in here into the fuse. These two are connected together. So I mean, I guess you could, no, you can't really just take both of them off and then move them out of the way, because this is then connected down in through here as well, so you'd have to disconnect that. So what I did was, there's a whole bunch of connections in the bottom of that. There's a bolt in here, bolt here, then that comes free, obviously. There's a plastic cover on the bottom, which you just unclip, and you can see the wires going in here and here. So you need to disconnect the wires that come from this box from that box, because they're all twisted, and they're all twisted in together. So you got to figure out which ones are which. I did take some footage of me doing it, but it's just like pretty much this video is anyway, but that's the kind of footage I got, and you can't really see anything, so I don't really need to show that. But long story short, I guess what happens is you disconnect what's connected to this, and then this can just go yoink over here somewhere, right out of your way. I think also, like reviewing my videos, I had actually taken the slave cylinder out before I disconnected that, but in saying that, everything here was out, and yeah, you could just remove that bolt and remove the two bolts. I'll point out which ones they are, because there is 3 bolts there. So it's this one and this one. The first one was this one, sorry. This one and this one. This one's connected on, that's a little bracketry for the line to sit in there. You don't need to remove that. That just stays attached because it's attached there where it's going to leak from if you disconnect the hard line. And just, yeah, that'll move out of there, which is probably the next step anyway. So I guess we've covered that all in one. So yeah, wiring harness then, all this wire that's in the way can just be tucked over there. And then if you're down in there trying to do stuff and it's in your way, you can just move it out and sit it over here. So I think that's enough coverage on that. And I think I've got all the points in, but let's see what's next. Just add one more point. If you did do that slave cylinder the Haynes way and just detach the slave cylinder and then move it out of the way, you're going to damage that hard line and cause yourself a whole bunch of problems. So you can see now we're at the point where we've jacked the car up. So it's in the air, taking the wheels off. You can see now what you sort of be looking at. We removed a lot of stuff there that you probably don't need to remove. That clamp's still sitting there. You can take that out. And that's where we're at. So the stuff on the side there, I took all those air lines out and stuff just to clean in there, I guess, and free it up. You can see I clean the gearbox and stuff as well just while I'm in there because I don't want dirt in the clutch. A little black bracket here attached to the tranny and the engine mount. You can just take that out when you want. So I went ahead and removed the splash guards, covers, whatever you want to call them. You can all see under there, it's great footage, I know. And the next thing we'll do is drain the oil out so that we don't spill it all over us when we pull the drive axles out. And if I can get a still enough shot there, I'll put a little arrow to point where the drain plug is. Oh, just there. So there's several different steps you could do now. You could take the drive axles out if you wanted. But what I wouldn't do is what Haynzy suggested earlier, is taking the speed sensor out, because you won't get at that. But what we've gone ahead and done next is remove these linkage cables. They come out pretty easy. There's a little split pin and a washer, which I'll show in a second, which I also showed, you know, earlier on in the video with the Haynzy diagram. But yeah, they come out, and that's them. There we go. There's the split pin and the washer. Just put them aside somewhere safe so you don't lose them. And away you go. Next thing's next. Will be the next thing, I guess, and we'll do that. Next thing we're going ahead to take out is the radiator. I've mentioned it earlier, how you pull that out. We didn't really look at Haynes to do that. We just yanked her out. The fan shroud was a bit of a fiddle around with the hoses and stuff, because like I said, I only disconnected the hoses from the engine block. But you know, you can do it your own way, whichever way you want to do it. Or not, but yeah, it gets it out of your way and makes life a bit easier. I really needed a drain on the coolant on this thing anyway, so yeah, there it is. Didn't spill a drop. Master effort there. And you know, your drain plug is up in there, and there's a condenser line that's going to get in your way of that hose if you try and do it my way. Had this clip, so why not touch on the radiator a bit more. I removed the cover from there, more so just not for any reason in particular other than I wanted to clean in there. As you can see, the radiator definitely needs a clean and a flush as well. The hoses are just doinked, they're no good, but didn't change them, just rolled with it because we're just trying to get this car fixed. Show this, we'll point somewhere else for a second, and then we'll come back to the little tool there. But yeah, we use this little tool just to break the seals, like a little jam jar opener sort of thing, with a rubber strap that you can just use to get a little bit of extra grip on there and get those hoses out nice. And while that's popping off, you can remember now after watching this one that the way I got this fan shroud out in the end was just, once you took that top hose off, you could just move it out of the way, and then the bottom hose, you just, you know, wangled it around that condenser line down the bottom. And yeah, that's what we did. That's how we did it. Switching it back now, back to the linkage cables. They got this little clip that holds them into that bracket. Might be a little bit tight, but you can just get them out with the pliers and a bit of spray just to sort of free it up. And they will then just pop out of those little clips. There's a little hole in the side. That's not too much of a difficult task to do. Some people just take the whole clip out, the bracket, and you could do it that way too, but it's a pretty tight spot down in there, so if you can get your wrench in there, that might work for you, but whichever way you want to do it, I guess. And you can see the radiator's out there now, and you know, the reason we've done that is, there's an engine mount. Yeah, that's a bit easier to get out now, isn't it? So next thing that we went ahead and did was remove that bracket there. This one's great footage. And you can also see there's that speed sensor cable there, which is in a right pain of a spot, just there. So, Haynesy said to remove that ages ago, but, you can see we can barely get our hand in there to get at it. It's a little plastic connector. I'll show that one in a minute. Yeah, real painful to get out, but yeah. So next thing we took out was that bracket to get that out of the way, make it a bit easier to get access in there. We then poke those cables up out of the way. That's the starter motor bolt there that it's telling you to remove. So we do actually go ahead and remove that, and I think we've already disconnected the cables. There's a bolt on one, there's a clip on the other. You just take those cables out, and here's that little bracket piece that we took out. Lost one of the bolts, eventually found it, which was good, so we didn't have to replace on that. And the way we got it out was through here with a big long extension, and you can just see those shiny little holes there. There's actually 3 of them. You can only see 2 there, but you get the gist of it. So make sure you get 3 out and not 2, like I had 2 bolts and that was there. There we go, there's a speed sensor taken out. I'll find a later footage that I've made of that, and I'll show you what that looks like. So here we go, here's the speed sensor cable. This is what it looks like. It's got this little plastic nut kind of spinny thing on it that you've got to, it's really tight, and so you get in there with your multis and try not to strip it or break it. This is footage at the end once I've already started putting things back in, but while we're here, you might as well look at those connections from the starter motor that I disconnected. One there, the red one, the positive's a bolt. The clip there's a negative cable, and you might just get a little glimpse of the nut there that you got to remove later. You can do that at any time anyway, so don't worry about that for now. So a quick little look at the split pin and the little cover there that you got to remove before you can access the nut. Different from Haynesy's description, but anyway, that's what I got. So then we went ahead and we had to go and buy a deep dish 30mm, because you'll need that to get over this nut, and then chock it up with a crowbar, rip that nut out. Then you give this drive axle a little bit of a tap. Nothing too serious, you just want to see it move a little bit, then onto the other side, and then you're going to have to remove these 3 bolts. So amazing footage, I know, but yeah, so once you got those 3 bolts out, that ball joint and the control arm there, you can get a pry bar in there. We'll just pause there so you can see it. You can get that in between there. 2 of those are bolts sticking through. One was just a nut, or 2 nuts and 1 bolt, can't remember exactly, but yeah, you can just prise that apart, and then you can go ahead and remove the drive axle from the hub. So assuming that all went to plan, what you should be looking at now, something like this, with the drive axle free from the hub. It's still in the transaxle there. We'll step onto that in a minute. We'll do that once we've removed it, and we'll show you how we did that. But we'll flash back over here, and you can see that the hub there, it moves around, so you can thing, and yep, that's not hanging anywhere, so that's fine. We're not shaking it around or anything, not letting it hang by itself, just sitting on the hub itself. So didn't really need to tie it up. It's not like it's going to stay there for any period of time. That gives you a bit better look there. So it was 2 nuts and 1 bolt. So moving on, they're out, there they are. Do the same on both sides, and as you can see, it's probably not a good idea to get in there with a pry bar, because you probably bend that little bit of brass there, but you can get a CV joint remover if you wanted. I don't have one of those, so I used a more calibrated tool, which was, let's see, this one here, little cold chisel. Worked well. There's a little crack in there, just popped her in that little gap and hit her with a hammer a few times, and out she came. It was a little bit hard to get in there and get the right angle and swing it and try to hold stuff that's not going to bang you on the head when it comes out, but yeah, that's how we did it. Limited tools, whatever. Yep, easy peasy. So now, before we went and moved any engine mounts, we gone and braced up the engine. You might actually see an engine mount there, but we'll talk about the engine brace. That's whacked in there. There's a bracket on the engine there for engine brace or a crane or whatever you decide to use to go on there. So that holds our engine in place. There's also that other arm there, which we'll use for the transmission. We'll also show you here. You could also do it with a jack. I just got it under there for a bit of extra security. So after we locked the engine into the brace, we went ahead and removed this front engine mount bracket. Pretty simple, really. Just came out nice and easy, unlike some of the other engine mounts that we'll get to later. But yeah, just 2 bolts straight into the transmission. One there, one below it. And that's it. She's out. You obviously got to take the main bolt out as well, but Yeah, of course, we'll do that. So the next problem you're going to run into is these AC lines, right where you want to take these bolts out. So yeah, that's a bit of a drama. So way around that we found out was you can just take this bolt out of the bottom of this brace here, and that frees up the line because it's a soft line just to the left of that, not the hard line. You'll have to remove that clip when you take out that engine brace piece anyway, so make sure you do that, even if your AC lines run somewhere else. And we moved along to there. There's a little clip in there. Just pop the line out of the clip and pop the line out of this clip, which you can kind of see, and we broke it. But you know, ideally if you get like a screwdriver or little bendy twisty pliers in there to undo that clip, that'd be good. But we could move that enough just to get our wrench in there as it was, and worked well. We probably skipped this, but now that bracket's out off the transmission, you can definitely remove that engine mount now. Just 2 bolts underneath in that brace. Get that out. Now we'll move on to what is the absolute worst part of this procedure. You can see this bit here that I'm pointing at. It's just a little weight. It's got 2 bolts in it, one either side. They've got to come out. Well, it doesn't have to come out, but it's going to make your life easier when you go to remove this rear engine mount, which is a nightmare. Then we'll move on to this muffler bracket, which is probably what Haynesy meant when he told us to remove the upper exhaust. But you've got to take this bolt out from here, and we'll probably focus on this one a little bit more than we need to. Sorry about that. It's just this footage that I could get that I have, that I wasn't going to make any new stuff, but we'll eventually, there's 3 bolts in this, so let's move on to the back 2 bolts. Yep, we'll eventually get there, and then we'll just stop there so you can see them. There we go. So you take those 2 bolts out as well as the other one, and then that'll come out, and then you got to get onto these engine mounts. So we're just going to flicker back and forward over this horrible footage and try and explain some stuff to you. So they're attached to the engine mounts, 2 nuts, 1 bolt there. 2 nuts, 1 bolt, yep, and there's another nut just there that's got to come off on the right of those, that one. Let's just pause there for a second and have a quick little breather. We didn't skip any steps. We just stopped to look at that nice little brand new clutch. And let me explain that I do call nuts bolts and bolts nuts sometimes. It's just something that I do for some obscure, strange reason. And yeah, let's look what a new clutch looks like so you can see what the old one looks like when we get that out. Ugh. Sure, everyone makes mistakes. Let's just go over this. This is probably a better way to look at it. So I'm actually looking at it the other way. I think that's where my confusions come in. So 1, 2, 3 engine mounts there, and this bolt as well that's got to go into the cross member, but it doesn't look like the brace there, and there's 2 on the front there too. When you go to remove that, all these other bolts can kind of stay in there. They're not needed. But go Haynesy here, like this one pretty much looks like an auto trans to me, but yeah, sure. So here's a quick look at them just on the bench, me playing with my nuts. Anyway, there was the 4 nuts. The taller one sort of went down the deeper hole, and then the bolt there. There was also another one that I didn't actually mention, which was to the right of the top 2 engine mounts that were side by side there. So yeah, make sure you take that one out as well. That holds the cross member bit in. So you really couldn't see under the car. Let's get a look at these bits. That first bit I pointed at was that weight, and then now we're pointing back at it again. So yep, that's a real pain to get out, but it's worth getting out to make the engine mount easier to get out. And that's your exhaust bracket, which you can wangle out, which you have to wangle out. So make sure you take that one out, if not the other bit. So here's another look at this nightmare that you got to remove, this engine mount bracket. There's a bolt there, the gold one. Then you'll see this other bolt there. And then we'll freeze here just so that you can see these other 2 holes off to your right there below the power steering rack. That's where we remove that weight from. So you can see how that was blocking it. And let's get underneath, have a look. Here we go. So you can see the weight was just there to the left of the engine mount. That bolt there, straight ahead, you got to remove that. You also got your engine mount nut there, bolt, nut to take out, bolt. You got to take that one out. We'll get it right. You can see how that's hanging in there too, because the bolts are actually attached to the engine mount. So I mean, I didn't do this the Haynesy way or anything, because the bottom bolt on that bracket ended up stripping on me, so I couldn't get the bracket out. So I removed the actual engine mount nut there, bolt, the horizontal one, and geez, we're getting good with the explanations now. and I ended up getting a hammer and punch and actually punching those bolts out, or just one of them I actually think I needed to get out, just to get the brace that comes off the cross member out, because that won't come out without that, because that bolt runs through that. And yeah, then I had to wriggle and jiggle and wangle to get the actual engine mount out, because you can see the power steering rack's there. It doesn't give you enough space to really do it. So, you know, I fiddled around, I moved the engine up and down, all sorts of stuff. It was absolute nightmare. So yeah. So there you can see, eventually, yes, we did get it out. Like I said, those bolts were attached in there. We punched that one out. We'll just roll with this rubbish footage while we explain a little bit of stuff, I guess. You can see the cross brace piece in the background there. We'll focus on that again in a second, I guess. Yeah, that bolt needed to get knocked out to pull that piece out. So we did that first, and then we had to wangle and jiggle that one out. I think we punched out a second bolt there that you can see. And then once we jump under the car here, you can see that once we get there, it takes a bit of jiggling and fiddling, I think, to get there, and some bad camera angles and all sorts of stuff. There we go, there it is. It stayed there. That's how we took the gearbox out, with that still attached. So yeah, we stripped the bottom bolt. We got the other two out, but we couldn't get that bottom one out. It would have been easier to get out sort of now, but still didn't come out. So we'll just move on from that and show you later. So now that cross member piece is out, it's a good time to get out the starter motor. Showed that earlier. The top bolt was there, bottom bolt, get that out. You already disconnected the wires, so yeah, get your hand up in there, yank that one out. That's out of the way. Another job done. Call this one the top engine mount, but yeah, you've seen that, and I'll show it again. Just a few bolts in that came out pretty easy, and I'll show you what I did with the bracket after this. We left that bracketry in there with the bolt attached to it, so you can see that that's what we used to help us maneuver the gearbox out. Right, I forgot with all these steps to mention taking out the bell housing bolts, so do that and then do this. So yeah, now you can see it's finally time to start removing the gearbox. Get a bit of a pry bar in there to separate it, find a nice spot that's not going to do any damage to anything. I can't really point that out because I don't really show it, but yep, that's, you know, all good camera angles in there and stuff. And I've got the jack under here just to help roll it out, separate it from the shaft. And yeah, that's just a big wiggle jiggle fiddle job by yourself, but we got through it. We get through it. So yeah, we'll progress and we'll show some more scenes of what we did a bit later on, because obviously we pull it out and it doesn't really, it's not very flat, so it's not going to balance very well on that jack. So next thing that we did was this. Here we are, wiggling and jiggling. We ran out of back play with that setup there, so we had to change on that. I don't really have any footage of what I did there, so I can't really show it. I can show a better way to do it actually when we put it back in, because I had a better setup then. But yep, she's nearly out. She moves around a bit, but she's just got a little bit of shaft still in that clutch plate, I think, and shaft itself's actually free from the flywheel, etc. But yeah, that was it. So next step is we're looking at the gearbox on the floor. So here we are, some wiggling, jiggling and fiddling, gearbox out. That's how you do it. So we'll sneak up and have a little closer look. Just absolutely full of clutch. Throw out bearings gone. So that'll get replaced in the when we get to the reinstallation part. But yep, next let's pull the clutch out. So yep, feast your eyes on this. Here's our clutch. You can see the plate, the teeth are just gouged. There's actually no bearing in there at all. So that's disintegrated somewhere, so I can't really show you how to take that out. You can see all the remnants of the clutch here, just stuck in there. It was all stuck on the flywheel as well. She's a mess. Dusted, done. So I don't really have any good footage on hand to sort of show the removal, but there's, I think it's 6 or 8 bolts that you take out. You zigzag out as you do it. Don't just take one bolt out and work around in a circle or anything like that. Just take them out evenly so it comes out. Also make sure that you put your clutch aligning tool in there, which I'll show in a minute. But you know, my clutch kit came with one. It's not something I bought, so if yours doesn't, you probably have to buy one. there's the flywheel, a bit of an examination, doesn't look too bad, just needs a bit of a clean up. Also made note in this dodgy looking video that I put the little jimmy bar in there just to on the crank, just to stop it turning while I was cracking on those bolts because it wanted to move. And you know, I didn't mark anything because I knew that we were going to replace the clutch because clearly it's destroyed. Let's have a look at it. Here we go. Nothing left of it. It's totally, absolutely obliterated. It's toast. It's metal. There's no clutch there. Oh, there, no, there's a bit of clutch. Yep. No, just was in the wrong spot, so we couldn't grab any gears. That's really good. You can also note that the tool was in there, and I had it sitting there the way it came out, so that you know I could remember which way it went back together when I go to put it back together. But I mean, this is literally it. This is the removal of the clutch. Pretty much all covered now. We didn't do Haynes steps, obviously. Sort of did it our own way, and it's not because we are a rebel and we wanted to do it differently. It's because it kind of had to be done that way. Or, you know, I guess you could do it the Haynesy way, but you're going to make life more difficult for yourself. Yeah, look at those gouges, and ugh, that's just toast. But one thing we haven't shown, actually, you'll need to remove the thrust bearing or throw out bearing or whatever you want to call it. We'll show you that in a second. We'll just keep rolling with this footage because it's just easier. We've done enough editing for now. It's getting late tonight, actually. I'm going to go to bed, I think, soon. Continue this tomorrow with the putting it back together, I guess. Hurry up and getting that bell housing, would you? Yep, there it is. It's there. Just sitting it all back together the way it came apart now. Just flick that over so you can see that tool goes through the hole there in the clutch plate. Keeps it all in alignment, but not that it would have been in alignment with no bearing in there anyway. But, you know, we'll need to install a new one of those when we comes in the kit, so we can do that. I think I made note here that the bolts look like someone had probably changed the clutch in the past because they looked like they'd been touched, but it was a factory clutch, so I don't know. It was probably the dealer who replaced the clutch at some point. It's a 20-year-old car, so it's not unlikely. And there's our throw out thrust bearing in the shaft. Shaft looked fine. That was fine. Throw out bearing was no good. This one you just pull it out. You can see me there. It's just got some metal clips that are on a pin in there that just will pull out. It just pops out. There it is. Clutch focus itself's all right, but so we don't need to replace that. We just get in here and clean. Make sure everything's ready to go for the install. That's the next stage though. Clean all this bad boy up. So yeah, we've done all the removal. So maybe we might even end this video here, and because we're just about to tick on an hour, so we might or I could just do what a lot of videos do and say, you know, this is how you pull it apart, and installation is just a reversal of the removal. Easy, done. Oh, that's my old dog. She's beautiful. Old Zeldy. Yep, that's a nice way to end it, isn't it? So yeah, we'll do that and point it there and do that and look in there again, and that's our video. Hope you were entertained, and or hopefully you learned something, or probably haven't even got this far. If you've gone this far, you've done pretty good, I reckon. And obviously you need to do this job maybe at home and thinking about it, but yeah, like I said at the start, I'm not an expert, I'm not a mechanic, first time doing a clutch even. And yeah, there's all our bits that we had to pull out. Not too many really, but it's quite a complicated process. And the only thing that really destroyed us was that rear engine mount. That was an absolute nightmare. Gearbox itself wasn't too bad to get out by myself with a little racy doodah thing I had there, and this is what I'm doing now, just poking around, probably talking about other stuff I'm going to fix while I'm doing it. But yeah, this old girl's fixed now, and I did make a whole big series of all these little clips that I've got that's just, you know, mostly garbage and lots of swearing, and it shows your story behind it, so maybe I'll put a link to that so you can watch that. I think I've covered everything, and now we're looking at the sticker. It's talking about fan belt replacement. Yep, that's important, interesting. But, yeah, that's it, I reckon. Do we end or we just keep going? I don't know. Yeah. Got a few more minutes left of footage, so didn't really edit this bit, just thought I'd just chuck this bit in there. So, I don't know. Is what it is. Hopefully it's watchable. I'm not really going to add any special things to it or anything. Just roll with it. And maybe people will watch it. You can subscribe. I'll make more. Like it. That helps me know that people like it. Hate it. Don't care. Make a comment. Ask a question. Happy to answer them. And yeah. That's how, I don't know what was made up more of the video. The Haynes part wasn't much of a review, but yeah. You can go back and watch all that again and see how we did it completely different, I guess. Anyhow, that'll do. Sign off. Adios. Just look at it. Just, it's great.